Hello, friends. Welcome to All Things Kitchen. My name is Jennifer. Welcome. If you've never been here before, I appreciate you stopping by. If you have been here before, thank you for coming back. This morning, I am going to be making some waffles. When we were on vacation at my son and daughter-in-law's house, I wanted to treat them to a breakfast, and I was going to make pancakes, but my son said, "Hey, I have a waffle machine if you want to make waffles." And I was like, perfect. I haven't made waffles in a while, and I found a delicious recipe that I wanted to share with you. I do have a waffle maker, obviously, since I'm doing this video. There's a couple of things that I don't like about it, and one of the things is that it makes the waffles too big, if you can believe that. It actually takes a whole cup of waffle batter to make one waffle. So they are really large waffles. So what I'm going to do is I'm preparing these to put in the freezer today and for future meals. And I think what I'm going to try to do is to divide it in half before I freeze them. So then that way when we reheat them, however we decide to do, whether it be in the toaster, the oven, microwave, whatever, that we only have half of a waffle, and so it's not so big. If you have a waffle maker, I'm sure it's the perfect size for you. If the cutting in half doesn't quite work for me, I may end up getting a new waffle iron. This one that I have is many years old. I've had it for many years, haven't used it for many years. And but anyway, like I said, the recipe that I found, which I will put down in the description box, I thought was delicious. And so I wanted to share it with you while I was preparing some to put up in the freezer. So I am going to bring it down. I have all of my ingredients ready. I am going to double this batch. The recipe, the link that I put in the description box will obviously just have a one batch. But I am going to double this since I am putting this up to be frozen. So I'll bring it down while I have a sip of coffee. Okay, so the first thing we are going to start with is 4 cups of all-purpose flour. And remember I said I am doubling this recipe, so the original recipe, of course, calls for 2 cups, but this is going to give me lots of waffles to put away. So that was 2, 3, and I know I'm off camera, you can't see, but I am using I'm fluffing the flour and using a spoon to put it in the measuring cup and then leveling off the top. You don't want to ever pack your flour. And I'm going to be honest, my flour is pretty filled with moisture right now. I know that. And so I'm going to take that into consideration when I'm adding my liquids. So to the flour, I'm going to put some sugar, and that is 4 tablespoons of sugar. I have my large container of sugar that I usually use when I'm baking, but when I just need small amounts, I have just a little Tupperware container that I use for like my coffee and tea that I drink in the morning and evenings. I just find it convenient rather than pulling out the big sugar container. And then I have it's going to be 8 teaspoons of baking powder. And I can convert that to tablespoons, but I'm not quite awake yet. And I do have my waffle iron plugged in so that it can be warming up right now. I have I'll need 1 teaspoon of salt. And just got my whisk here so I can combine all of these ingredients and get out any lumps that I see here in my flour. I could have sifted it, but this will work just fine. Now, in a separate bowl, I'm going to combine my wet ingredients, and that is going to be 4 eggs. So there's 4 room temperature eggs. So while I am melting more butter, I'm going to go ahead and put the vanilla in here. And so this is going to be 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And I am using a different kind of vanilla. Put a little bit extra in there. I'm not even sure why I measured it. When we were on vacation visiting, we went to the Alamo. And they had some Mexican vanilla extract. And all the extract that I make is using Tahitian vanilla beans. And so I wanted to see if I liked the Mexican vanilla beans. I wanted to see if I liked the Mexican vanilla beans, so I may try to make that myself. And of course I prefer the homemade vanilla. You get the little specks of vanilla beans in there, and I really like that. And that is not in vanilla when you buy it store-bought. It's a little bit different, but I don't know if it's enough different to buy different kinds of vanilla beans. So I'm still melting the butter a little bit. I have 3 cups of milk here. I did warm this up a little bit, and the recipe suggests that you do that so that your melted butter stays in a melted state, which I think is a good idea. I've never seen that before in a recipe. Now, of course, like I said before, I live in Florida, so usually that's not an issue for me, but living in a colder state, if your kitchen is cold at all, that would definitely try to solidify your butter back. So I have 6 teaspoons here. This was before I decided to double the recipe. I did 6, and I just tried to melt another 6. So let me just, there we go. So that's 12 tablespoons of melted butter. I have my wet and dry ingredients all ready, so I'm going to go ahead and pour about 3/4 of my wet ingredients in here and just give this a stir. And we may end up, my husband and I may end up sharing a waffle this morning, because just like with pancakes, a lot of times the first one doesn't turn out just right. So it's sacrificial waffle. And I want to make sure I don't overmix this too much, but as you can see, I still have quite a bit of liquid in here. I'd say probably a good cup in there. And this is probably about the consistency that I'm looking for, if not even a little bit thicker, but there's still some lumps in there. So my flour, I may need to just sacrifice it and replace it, because it is too saturated with liquid, with moisture, I should say, not necessarily liquid. And I know my bread flour is fine, but I also weigh out my bread flour when I make my bread. All right, so I'm going to let this sit for a few minutes, just so the flour can hydrate completely. See if I can get rid of those lumps, but I don't want to over mix it. And we're going to give this a couple of minutes. I'm going to go ahead and put it in. No, I'm not going to put it in the refrigerator because I don't want the butter to solidify. So I'm going to leave it out. I'll be back. So I've got the waffle iron all heated and set up and ready to go. And I've got a cup measuring scoop that I'm just going to put that in there. I can tell it's going to need a little bit more. And I'm going to close the lid, give it a flip. Now, the light does come on when it tells me it's done, but I have found that the light comes on before it's really ready. So I'm just set a timer for 4 minutes. 4 minutes seemed to work the last time I made these after we got home from our vacation. So we're going to give this 4 minutes, and then we'll have a waffle ready. Waffles do have a crispy exterior with a nice, soft, fluffy inside. But in order to keep that crispy exterior, you want to make sure that when you take them out, that you don't stack them one on top of one another. So that is why I have this cooling rack set off to the side over here. So I will just put the waffles on there when they're done and let them come down to room temperature, and before I stick them in a bag to put in the freezer. So the light has gone off on the waffle iron, but it's only halfway through cooking. And just to show you, whew, that was building up some pressure. So it's almost there, but not quite. So that's why I want it to go 4 minutes. Right now, my timer still says 2 minutes. So we will give that some more time and let it get nice and golden brown. And now this is the first time I've seen this. Like I said, it's been years since I've used this waffle iron. I mean, I used it when we got back from vacation, but before that, I couldn't even tell you. 5, 7. I don't even know how it was still in the back of my cabinet, but I don't remember this building up pressure like this. That really had some pressure behind it, because when I flipped it and opened it, it pretty much opened the top by itself. But maybe that's going to help it be nice and soft and fluffy inside and give it that golden brown exterior. Okay, the timer just went off. I need a sip. Timer just went off, so I'm going to bring it back down. Okay, so it still didn't get brown all the way on the edge right here, but this is getting, that's brown enough. I don't want that to get any browner. So I'm going to grab a pair of tongs here to get this out. And you can see the other side, kind of same thing. Like I said, the first one sometimes is a sacrificial one. And I will make sure I don't put as much in there as I did last time. Maybe if I just use my spatula. There we go. All right. Close the lid, give it a spin. We'll give that a couple minutes. 4. Do you guys have a favorite waffle or pancake recipe that you use? I'd love to know which one it is, if it is linked to a website or just one you have passed down from maybe your mom, your sister, your aunt, your grandma. I'd love to hear it. Generally, my husband eats waffles when we go out to breakfast, between waffles, pancakes, French toast. Those are his favorite breakfasts. Whereas mine is more the bacon, eggs, hash brown with toast or English muffin or biscuit. Or even like a breakfast skillet, which I think I've talked about before. You know, put them all together into one little skillet or bowl. Those are my favorite breakfasts. Kind of put all the food together. Now this waffle is not building up pressure like the last one did, so I'm wondering if it's just because I overfilled it. There's a little bit of steam happening around it. Let me show you. I don't know if you can see the steam or not, but it's not singing. It doesn't have the pressure that it had on the last one. And you can see this one's nice and golden brown all the way around. So there's a little bit of hole there. That one's a little thin, couple holes there, but we did not overfill it this time. Oh, it's hot and nice and golden brown on both sides. Now you can see in the batter there is still a few lumps there, but that's okay. Pancakes have lumps when you put them in, and it's okay that we've got a few little lumps in the batter. It says hydrated. That flour was as hydrated as it was going to get. So, all right. Next one. Set it and forget it. So this was the first one I was talking about. We'll probably split this morning. Plus, I want to see what it's like having just a half a waffle, if that's like a perfect breakfast meal. But you can see how big this waffle is. Let me come back. This one's a little bit cooler. That one's a little bit hot. It's as big as my hand. And I mean, I don't have really large hands, but for a woman, imagine eating a waffle that's as big as your hand, which is as big as your face. So a waffle that big, it's a pretty big waffle. This is a standard small plate. I couldn't have this on the small plate. It just fits on there. There's no room for cutting it. Syrup, butter, jelly, whatever you want to put on it. There's no room. It would just make a mess. You'd have to use a large plate for that. So that's why I want to cut those in half. And a cup of That's a big waffle, a full cup. I forgot to set the timer. All right, well, this process will be the same, rinse, lather, repeat kind of thing. So I will bring you back when we're all done. We can see how many waffles this made, and then we'll get them packaged up for the freezer. And like I said, my husband and I, actually, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to go ahead and make us that plate while it's still a little bit warm. And we'll eat breakfast while these are cooking, and I'll bring you back when we're all done. I went ahead and heated this one up while that one's cooking. Not heated it up. Put some butter on it. I did have to pop it back in the microwave for about 10-15 seconds. Got some honey butter left over from yesterday that I made. I made some biscuits yesterday and made honey butter to put on my biscuits, and I'm trying that on the waffle. Let me get this one more minute. So I wanted to, can't hold that plate up like that, but I will just go ahead and use my fingers though, a little bit like this. That honey butter is delicious on there. I'm going to put a little bit of syrup. It almost doesn't need it with that honey butter. This recipe is so good, in my opinion. They are nice and fluffy on the inside. You see that? You should try this. It's really good. So I have the first batch done, and what I mean by first batch is when I mixed the wet and dry, I had a whole bunch of wet left over. The wet ingredients, the eggs, the milk, the butter, vanilla. So I'm doing a little experiment. I'm not going to waste that. I had some self-rising flour, and I added some self-rising flour along with a little bit more baking powder because that recipe did seem to have a lot of baking powder in it. And I haven't tasted it yet, but I can't imagine it to be bad. So if you run into a situation like that, don't throw it away. See if you can salvage it. The worst that can happen is you use a few cents, maybe a few dollars worth of ingredients to try to not throw away a few cents, a few dollars worth of ingredients, but you might get more product out of it. I'm certainly not trying to waste ingredients for sure. I'm trying to save them. So it made sense to me to just go ahead and add. I could have added my regular all-purpose flour that the recipe called for, but I've had that self-rising flour for quite a while, and I've been trying to use it up as well because I just don't use self-rising as much. I use the self-rising to make my biscuits, and that's about it on the regular. So I'm happy to have this. Also, just to reiterate how big, I know I already said it, how big these waffles are. I got out a measuring, a ruler, and these are 1 inch thick. So they're as big as a small plate, 1 inch thick. I didn't measure across. I'm like maybe 7 inches or something. I don't know what a small plate is. All right, so we're still cooking. I haven't even been able to finish all of the half of the waffle. I still have this much left. So I'm not going to force myself to eat it because I get myself in trouble when I do that. I'm so happy you guys are here with me today. These are the ones that I made with the self-rising flour, and those are the original recipes. So I was able to get basically 7.5 waffles out of that recipe. We did eat one, so there's 6.5 left. Still going to wait for these to come down to room temperature. They're still slightly warm, so I don't even want to cut them in half yet. I want them to stay. The first ones that I made, they're definitely room temperature, and I could deal with them, but I'm not going to deal with just a couple. I'm going to wait until they all cool down. So I was able to salvage the rest of the wet ingredients by mixing in more flour. I've not tasted them. I may have my husband do that. I am really full after the not even half one that I ate. So maybe it's the 2 cups of coffee that I had on top of it. But we're going to let those cool down. And I'm really happy. So I'm going to have, with these halved, you know, this will be a good 1, 2, 3, 4, well, 7 meals for us to be able to just have half a waffle. My husband wants a whole waffle. That's fine. We can do that too. But to be able to have that in the freezer and ready and not have to get out all the ingredients, the equipment, and just to have it all ready and not buying pre-made stuff from the store where the ingredient list may be things that you can't pronounce. We know what's in this: flour, milk, butter, baking powder, salt, vanilla, all the good things. So I appreciate you coming along today. I'll give you a final shot of this when I have them all packaged up and ready to go in the freezer. And I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great week. I can't wait to see you next time. Take care.